that music anywhere. Siesta Ocha by Pastec. This is James Moore. You are listening to solar-powered KRUU-FM, and you have made it to another episode of the ongoing saga known as City Business. City Business with Michael Halley, recently reelected, and we are delighted to have him here to give us the latest haps from City Hall. Remember, you can check out this on KRUU-FM at noon time, well, noon 30, let's call it that, to be precise. Tuesdays, dinner time, Thursday, 6:30 p.m., and the following Monday, 6:30 a.m. for you breakfast types. So, Michael, how you doing today? Good to see you.
I'm good. Glad to be here, as always.
Well, good to have you, and let's jump right in.
Sure thing. This is a mostly unbiased review. I was just teasing someone about that.
As unbiased
as I can possibly be. I'm
Excellent.
Still a person, and so, it's going to go somewhat channeled through me, but review of the regular city council meeting for November 25th, 2013. Let's see, what do we have that was interesting? Well, we had a open session with our friends, the Jefferson County Supervisors.
Oh, great.
We don't generally have group meetings, but there are some areas of overlap for the city and the county. Just so people know, a lot of people approach me and they want to talk about Jefferson County issues, anything to dealing with outside of city limits, such as CAFOs or just something maybe, in another nearby community. And I remind them that the city council of Fairfield is for Fairfield, the city limits of Fairfield. That's our jurisdiction. And for the county is our county supervisors, Lee Dimmitt, Becky Schmidt, and Dick Reed. So they have their offices at the courthouse, and Fairfield obviously is the county seat. So we're the majority, I suppose, or at least a large portion of the total county population do either live or work in Fairfield. But there are some smaller communities.
And it's just interesting to note, 99 counties, I think, in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
So that means there's city government, there's county government, of course, state government,
Mm-hmm.
and federal government, each with their kind of jurisdictions, and some overlap.
Yep.
And but that's so the county supervisors met with you guys. What was like a boxing match or
No,
fish fry or what?
It was very friendly.
Okay, good.
So one area of cooperation is the law center. It's called the Jefferson County Law Center, and it is owned by the county, and it does house the sheriff and all the deputies and the county jail. So that's all their jurisdiction and responsibility. But a portion of that building is also leased to the city for the Fairfield City's police department. So we have what's called a 28E agreement. 28E refers to intergovernmental agreements. So counties and cities, counties and state, anytime you're making an agreement. Mostly I believe they do exist between cities and counties. So it just made sense to build one building and then share it. And the costs are shared proportionate to the building size and how much square footage the city uses, which is about a third. But some of the cost, and this is what they brought to our attention, the new sheriff, newish sheriff, Greg Morton, had been crunching some numbers, and he works really closely with our police chief, so she was not caught off guard at all. She already knew about what he was proposing, but he had some expenses that the county has been covering the 2/3 dollar figure on, but actually have nothing to do with square footage. They have to do with usage. And so he just went through them one by one, and there weren't that many. One had to do with a state computer system that every time you access to get information, it charges you, it bills you, and it's used pretty 50-50 between the city and the county. Other things were janitorial services. If you exclude the jail, which is not covered by those services, it's actually 50-50 square footage split, and yet the county had been paying 2/3. Mowing, pest control, and the final one was paper, office paper. So combined, it was over $30,000 a year that they, about 35 or 38, I believe, for the year total. So when you take a split, 1/3 split versus a 1/2 split, it's not gigantic amount of money, but it's significant and it can help their budget, and if it's more equitable. So generally, there is what's called the service agency, which is comprised of 2 supervisors, 2 city council members of Fairfield, and 1 unbiased citizen, to make kind of a split vote situation. Because if you had something that was in one entity's favor, you might get a 2 against 2, and then you have a split vote.
It makes sense.
So that agency actually didn't meet. Maybe in the future we should probably meet first, discuss it. It's kind of like going to committee. It can get discussed a little more in depth without any other agenda items, so you can just get into it more. We didn't, but the council felt fine, saying, you know what, this all makes sense. Our police chief said this makes sense. She feels it's fair. So we passed it, and everyone was happy. And then we discussed, since they were there, and an agenda item that was a little further down in our action items, but the mayor decided to move it forward, was council approval of support and commitment of matching funds for the pool and indoor rec project, and authorizing submission of a CAT grant, Community Attraction and Tourism Grant. The city has only ever applied for one of these, and that was for the Arts and Convention Center. Mm-hmm. It's interesting when they say that, because that's not a city project. The city and the county both contributed in some way.
It became a city project.
Well, it became a city-owned building,
mm-hmm.
but when it was under construction and all that, it's a nonprofit that managed it all. But the city did help in some way. I think we got $800,000 from Community Attraction Tourism Grant. So this will be our second application, and it's for the outdoor pool and the indoor rec center. And we're applying for what they recommend is the maximum amount, about 20% of your project, which in this case would be about $1.8 million. There's only $4 million available for the whole state for next year. So we'll see. We're hopefully feeling that we can get something. But part of that application requires county support as well. The county has to have some skin in the game. Now, in the past, I think they did in-kind. I can't remember exactly what, but that's what they did for the convention center. It was about $25,000 of in-kind. Maybe it was some property tax relief. I'm not sure what it was. Or maybe they had their crews come out and help with something. There are different ways. But what the Park and Rec Task Force would like to see is a second county vote. The first one took place last August. It was not a good time of year. It was actually really a tough time of year with everyone being gone, and Ragbri just come through and basically exhausted everyone. And then the no vote came out and won by a narrow margin. It's not uncalled for to ask for a second one. It's been done many times. School levy. Usually things go twice for whatever reason for this kind of thing. So that was a kind of unofficial little request. I mean, the mayor and I serve to some extent on the task force, but it's basically citizens. Citizens have to drive it. We're there kind of as advisors. So Citizen Task Force will be approaching the supervisors and requesting a second county vote for spring. Dick Reed, one of the supervisors, said, I'd like to see a petition of county members who are in favor of another vote. Actually, if you get up to 500, I believe legally they have to. But even if you don't get that, you show, with the petition, you show you've got support. So we'll see. There's not much time between now and December 2nd.
If there was a petition, does that come prior to the spring? Are there only 2 windows for voting periods that are allowed, or how does that work?
There are a few, but with the timing of the project and wanting to get started in spring, the task force would like a March vote, and then the deadline to actually make that decision is December 9th. So the task force will go to the December 2nd supervisor meeting. They meet weekly. They meet basically every Monday.
And that's open to the public?
Yep, at the courthouse.
So did you hear that, listeners out there? If you're interested in county issues or just want to see how your local government works, that's an opportunity. What is the time frame for that, do you know?
I'm not certain.
I'm sure you can call and find out.
Yeah, call the courthouse and find out. I've never been to one, to be honest. I was thinking of going to this one, and I've got another meeting about ash trees, of all things, next Monday. But anyway, it's just very interesting. The two government entities that overlap a lot, have a lot of common interest, and yet also somewhat different. So it was nice to have them there. And then once we finished that conversation, they moved on. They'd had a long meeting that day, so they were done.
They were ready to go.
They don't usually have evening meetings.
By the way, I just want to remind listeners, we're speaking with Michael Halley. He's the 4th City Council Ward. Well, I'm going to call him elected official because he just was reelected. And by the way, speaking of reelected, there will be a runoff for December 3rd for the at-large city council position that's still open. And I'm not sure. I'm hoping to be able to have Patrick Bosold and Doug Flournoy in, possibly Flournoy. To talk about where they're at. We see signs around town, but that's just something to keep you December 3rd coming up right down the pike.
Yeah, it'd be great if they could come on, because I remember I came on when my first election was contested and actually got interviewed at the same time as opposed to separately. And it was great. I think people could hear, the compare and contrast, ask the same question and you hear two different answers. All right, so we didn't have any public forums or appearances. We moved right into action items. We did approve the CAT grant application unanimously. We also had a pre-application for the 2015 Airport Improvement Program. The airport, a lot of their projects are covered 90 to 95% by federal funds. There's this whole federal aviation entity that helps fund small airports. So they're looking at building a new terminal in the near future. Their old terminal is pretty old, outdated. I keep saying I really want them to have a baggage check with the carousel, but I just don't know if there's quite enough traffic for that yet. But
well, we want Jim Carrey and others to feel comfortable when they fly in.
Yeah.
Oprah, whoever. There are people who fly people in for business. Even Wally DeVazier.
Yeah, Cambridge flies people in. Yep. So more on that later. That was just a pre-application, just saying.
Okay, first step.
Yep. The next was the approval of the fiscal year 13 annual TIF report, tax increment finance. I don't want to get too much into this because I want to run through all this, but it was interesting that one TIF that the city has done did not pan out. According to our city clerk, did not pan out at all the way we'd hoped. Now, the idea is you borrow money in an area where you're going to borrow that money to make an investment in upgrading the properties. So there was a place where there was a parking lot, and now it's a nice building that I don't want to get too much into which one, but it's I think it's an elder care facility. So the city did a TIF, borrowed some money to help with the infrastructure, and for whatever reason, the property value that should have increased to a certain amount to then pay back the loan hasn't. And we're looking into it, because if a TIF doesn't work, you really got to understand why it didn't work, because otherwise you just, we borrowed the money, now we got to pay it out of our general fund or take it out of everyone's property taxes or something that's not really what it was intended to do. It was supposed to be self-sufficient. The funds that were spent went into an improvement, and the improvement then is a higher assessed value for property tax. Those taxes pay back the loan. Now, others have worked extremely well, where it's paying back way more than was expected. So it can go either way. And when it works better than expected, no one really says, we need to explore why that is. You just say, okay, we're happy with that. But when it works not very well, and this one was pretty sad. It was like over $100,000 invested and like $6,000 paid off, and it's only 2 years left, and it's just not looking like it's ever going to get anywhere close to repaying it.
And no idea yet why?
No, we need to basically find out. We need to look at the original plan and what they expected it to do. And then we need to talk again with the county assessor and auditor and find out.
And how long ago did this start, this project?
This was a while ago.
6 years, more?
No, more, maybe 10.
10, okay.
Maybe more. Anyway, hearing it did make some of the council members say, okay, we need more information on this, because if a TIF doesn't work the way it's intended, we should understand why, and maybe avoid those types in the future if they're not going to pan out. For the most part, the ones that involved housing developments pan out well. Any that involve commercial properties seem to pan out well, but this one, for whatever reason, did not. So more on that later.
Okay.
The rest of the report was very positive. So let's see, a letter of engagement. We're hiring a specialized lawyer to help us with preparing Logan Apartments, which is city-owned for some reason. I've never fully understood why.
Well, there's histories of things. I'm sure at the time.
At some point that was, we wanted to be in the real estate business, but now the council's not interested in being in the real estate business and could use the funds of the sale of that for a lot of the projects that are very important.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking into that moving forward. Had a couple of tax abatement applications. One was for precision equipment out on West Burlington, commercial. Another was for residential on Cody Circle. So they looked good. We passed them through. Again, the amount of the abatement is not set by the city. It's dependent upon the assessed value of the county.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to county, the county
Okay.
assesses property values in the whole county, not the city. So when someone feels, I know in the past there was a group that felt maybe their properties were valued too high and went and had some conversations and did some things. So if you ever look at your property valuation, generally you get a letter each year that's with your property tax bill that says what it is. If it seems out of sorts, too high, too low, then you talk to the county about that one. They take the funds and then divide them amongst the school system, the county government, the city government, and the hospital, basically. Some voluntary annexation of some land is happening, but we have to set a public hearing first. You see the slow process of government.
Well, this sounds all very city council-y. I
Yes.
just wanted to say that's Michael Halley. I'm James Moore, and we have Jason in the house, silent witness. We're talking about FMC, not the Fairfield Musicians Club, the Fairfield Media Center. We appreciate them filming this. They also, just will remind you, film or tape the entire city council session as well. And is that live now? No, not quite.
Yeah.
It is live at the same
Online
time. So
live
it's
and
online
on-
live and then
And on
then
Public
broadcast
9,
later.
or
Yeah,
Public
so,
Access Channel 9.
I mean, you can get it if there's something that you can't make it out for. If you have access, if you have television, cable, and all that, that's another way you can hook in. And so we appreciate that. And of course, we're solar powered KRUU-FM. We are here nonstop, almost forever, going on 8 years, and
Nice.
we really do appreciate Michael taking a few minutes from his biased or unbiased point of view to present what's going on with the city council. I think it's important for everybody to stay in the know on that, because there are things that affect all of us, even though it sounds, as I was just saying, kind of city council-y today.
Yep. So we set the public hearing for these annexations. Basically, it's some land by the bypass south of town that's going to be added to the city's property and hopefully developed into housing. And then also Prairie Lake subdivision is on Walton Road, and that's actually where we're getting a lot of these tax abatement requests, because there's pretty good construction going on out there. It's nice to see new homes being built again.
Pretty unusual in this day and age.
Yeah, but the
for the
economy
moment.
seems to be on the upswing, so people are building again. And they're expanding north. They had some land they didn't initially want annexed as a city until it was ready, but they're expanding north, so we're gonna voluntarily annex that and rezone it from R1 to R2, because some of the properties out there are not single-family residents, some are duplexes, so R2 allows for duplexes. So those are just public hearings set for our December meeting. So we didn't take any action except for setting a public hearing. It's important.
And that's going to be when, I guess,
It's only actually 1 December. It's the 16th.
the 16th. Okay.
Yeah, it's our take it easy month, so we just do the one meeting.
Well, it's tough, all these holidays, in between all the holidays, you know what I'm saying? But it's good.
Well, this next one, I have a great joke. So I hope I'm not boring you too much.
Boring.
we
Are you
had
kidding?
to-
This is riveting.
Well-
I'm literally, what's that? Lucy the Riveter?
You
No.
are, yeah. We approved agreement for soil boring around the wastewater facility. Essentially,
Now, that is pretty boring.
it is. There's
No,
several.
I mean, literally.
I know, it is. But it's important because some landowners who may have had their properties under eminent domain bought by the cities to expand our wastewater plant objected and said, hey, do you need to do it right here? How about you do it over there where there's just farmland? So the soil boring will be done to assess, can it be done in this alternate location without disturbing the houses? And that's just due process. That's our responsibility as a city to look at all options.
And I just want to be clear. I wasn't saying figuratively it was boring. I'm saying literally it was boring.
Yes.
They're boring the soil.
They are.
Right. And you know, who wants bored soil? Obviously we need it in this case. Okay, I'll settle down.
And they're also going to do some along where the improvement to the sewer line where it comes in from Lansome Woods and heads south. That's actually apparently a real bottleneck at this point. The old lines are just too small for the amount of wastewater that we have now. So that'll be one of the first phases to get upgraded, and that'll relieve a huge amount of the SSOs, this sanitary sewer overflows, because that's one place that happens quite frequently. Too much water coming in and can't handle it. More on that later. Remember that vacating those alleys by the Methodist Church?
Absolutely.
Well, for some reason in the wording, it just said the west side. I don't know. So our city administrator kind of embarrassingly admitted, I don't know why, but that's what it said. So now we have to do the east side because we're going to do that.
Well, it's important to do, what do you call that? Dot your I's and cross your T's?
Yeah, so they only have half the alley at this point. We're going to sell them the other half. We'll do it at the next meeting.
Well, you know what my dad used to say, half an alley is better than no alley at all. But I'll settle down again. We just had the last couple minutes to go here.
Yeah. Well, the deer ordinance.
Oh, yes. The deer in the headlights.
Yes, the 4-day deer hunt is on. It passed 5-1. And
no surprise, really, the way that the lead up has been.
Yeah, and there were two citizens speaking in favor, one speaking against. And the against was just asking to remove the Obie Nelson portion, which this gentleman felt was too accessible to children, etc.
Okay.
We are talking 4 days, so it's the last weekend, last Saturday and Sunday in December, the first Saturday and Sunday in January. Only proficient hunters who pass the accuracy shooting test will be allowed, and we'll be definitely advertising ahead of time, and there'll be police on the scene to make sure no one enters the park. The park will be closed, the school system will be closed, the whole area will be not available for people for those 2 days.
Okay.
And then we'll see how it goes. And based on how it goes, talk about what we're going to do in the future.
Well, that's great. And is that it for the day?
Not quite.
Not quite. One more thing, guys. Hang in there. Coming up in just a few minutes, if you're listening live, Speaking Freely with Dennis Ramundi. But we're with Michael Halley, and final word.
Final word. Scott, Tim, and I, our sustainability coordinator, were invited by the DNR to go to a Emerald Ash Borer conference in Burlington, Iowa, earlier in November, and learned a lot, and learned that we are very much on track on how we're dealing with it. We're not going to use chemicals to try to kill the pest and save the trees, because that ends up killing other things like birds and bees. We're essentially looking at replanting and taking trees down in a
I'm more
slow
of a
manner.
flamethrower guy, just kind of take everything out, but I understand the delicacy of that.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
But you're going to hear me talk about that quite a bit more in
Cool.
the future as we move forward on that.
Well, I know Scott's, just so avid with all this stuff. I know he was sitting up in a tree himself. I read in Facebook.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's everything you read in Facebook is true.
He's a deer bow hunter. He
But
enjoys it, yeah.
my brother-in-law, a big bow hunter guy, actually works for Bass Sporting Goods. But, I think that does it. This has been another City Business with Michael Halley, 4th Ward City Council person, James Moore, solar-powered KRUU-FM, and you can catch us lunchtime Tuesday, dinner time Thursday, the following breakfast time Monday to catch up on the latest haps. We also archive it. Also, FMC, the Fairfield Media Center. So many C's. Also, not only are kind enough to do this and put it up on their website, but also live City Council as well. So thanks to all that. We'll just keep on having some fun here. Michael, thank you.
Thank you.